Good morning, YouTube. It's your buddy Chop It On. I am coming at you with a hyper simple breakdown, traditional style. Yesterday we talked a little bit more about contest selection and whatnot, but today we're going back to the hyper simple breakdown for the early slate of MLB games for May 30th. So jump on in once you guys get locked and loaded. I'm going to tell you, of course, we're brought to you by DFSArmy.com, your one-stop shop for all things DFS related, PGA to MMA. The Memorial just kicked off. We've got WNBA slates loading. We've got people that are winning money on Stanley Cup finals still. So there's an awful lot of great stuff going on inside DFS Army right now. Content, tools, and coaching, obviously designed to make you a better player. So stop down into the comments section, click the link, use the coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P, and why don't you join us? Why don't you become one of the winners along with us? You see our Army hats on the leaderboards all of the time, and it's because of the groupthink. It's because of the team effort that we put in to our products and our coaching, real-time coaching that discusses today's plays and makes you a better player. I'll have the free league updated for tonight. We'll put that link in the coaching forums. So obviously you can't be part of our learning league if you're not part of the team. So jump on in and start, joining that league too, and start figuring out what contests that you belong in, where the bulk of your play should be. Should it be in 50-50s and head-to-heads? Should it be in triple ups or leagues? Should it be in tournaments, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? That's what we talk about right now. But today we're going to talk about pitching, and we're going to talk about your hyper simple slate breakdown for the 3-game early slate. I wouldn't play it on DraftKings. I don't like on 3 games. I only have 6 pitchers to choose from, and I don't like having to choose 2 of them. I can usually throw one out there and take my chances. I've got a 1 in 6 shot at being the best pitcher on the slate, and today it's pretty darn wide open. When we look at our lowest graded pitcher in Jared Eichhoff, he's our highest salary pitcher. Not that 7,400 on Fanduel is saying much, but it is what it is. When we scroll over to the right and we look for our K-score, which is our strikeout upside, we see very low numbers there. 465 is high on the slate. That's pretty ridiculous. We can usually find over 500 on most slates. And down into the 365 range is really, really low. Tells me these are more contact pitchers. If I look, low fly ball percentages, probably if I scrolled over and looked high ground ball percentages. I don't like the Sierras on a couple of these guys. Those guys we can attack with bats. And I look at home run per 9, not a lot of fly balls, not a lot of home runs. These guys keep the balls in park. So tonight might be a day you're looking at OBP, maybe a little bit of WOBA for some gap pop and some doubles, triples type stuff. There isn't necessarily going to be a lot of home runs on the slate. Now, we are in Coors, but we're not necessarily going to see a lot of home runs today. When I look over at some of these pitchers that you don't recognize the names to, you're going to want to look at this section over here for the innings pitched per game. And games started, only 2 games started and 3 games started for Clarke and Beatty. But, Beatty's only going 3.1, so he's probably not on the radar. He might be one of those opener types. Eichhoff is coming back off of injuries and stuff, so he's a little bit shortened up. But 6.2 for his 2 starts in Taylor Clarke, that's a legit starter. They're running him out there and they're keeping him out there. That's one method you might be able to use today in determining which pitcher might have the higher floor. Yes, he can get shelled, but he's going to get you some innings. If he can get you a few strikeouts along the way, he might provide the safest floor of the night or of the day. You might also just want to punt pitching and get out of there. Looking over at our Vegas category, 102, 128, 112, your highest favorite is down here in Philadelphia. That's more indicative of Philly going to beat up on St. Louis than it is necessarily Eichhoff going to get the win. But if they jump out to an early lead, he might not do a lot, and he might cruise to the victory. So when we look over here at the pitchers that we want to target, it was Alcantara and Beatty that had the higher Sierras on the slate. That puts Miami and San Francisco in the shootout of the day. Again, if this is a 15-game slate, we might not be talking about these guys, but only a 3-game slate, you have very limited choices. So I would look for high innings pitched. I would look for a Vegas favorite. We're not going to get a K-score. I would look for keeping the ball in the yard. I would look for who has maybe the highest floor, because I don't think a lot of these guys have a lot of upside unless they just pitch the games of their lives. The other way I would go with bats is 2 ways. We saw high Sierra. We can look easily at who struggles to which side of the plate. I can tell you a couple of these little numbers that I wrote down. Philadelphia, Eichhoff is weaker to lefties. He gives up a 409 xWOBA to lefties. And in St. Louis, Philly lefties are in a good spot. Philly lefties are in a good spot means Dakota Hudson gives up a 409 xwOBA to lefties. St. Louis lefties are in a good spot because Eichhoff gives up a 359 xwOBA to lefties. Those are a couple of targeted spots you could take today if you wanted to gamble on attacking a pitcher's weakness. Miami, both sides of the plate are fine. That's why this is kind of going to be, it looks like a shootout on paper, because Miami, both sides of the plate are attackable. Miami's pitcher that puts Miami, I get confused with this, but Miami's both sides of the bat. So that would be San Francisco's pitcher, which would be which would be Beatty that we're looking at. Beatty gives up a 333 xwOBA to lefties and a 421 to righties. Alcantara, on the other hand, this is Arizona, Arizona has, I guess, both sides of the plate, too. I'm bouncing back and forth between the screen and my paper, so you're just going to have to bear with a little bit of that confusion as we go. But when we're looking at Arizona, both sides of the plate, that puts Colorado, that means Freeland gives up xwOBA to both sides. I should have known that, right? 316 to lefties, 383 to righties. So if you wanted to run like an Arizona/Miami stack, you're probably putting yourself in a pretty good position. And I know Arizona wasn't ripping the cover off the ball last night for as great a spot as they were in. If you're a DFS superstitious type of guy, you might be thinking of the day early theory, which is they were in a great spot yesterday, so they'll produce today. And that might happen for your Escobars, your Martes, your whatevers. So speaking of those names, the other thing I would tell you as far as attacking a pitcher, you want to attack their weaknesses, where they give up xwOBA, where they give up fantasy points, etc., right side, left side of the plate. But another thing you could do on a small slate like this is try and determine where's the chalk. Now, I know all these pitchers are terrible, but where's the chalk? Highest odds, highest price, Eichhoff might be the guy. I don't think it's going to be any of the Colorado guys. I don't know, Alcantara, it might be a little bit spread out, but if there's going to be any chalk on this slate, from what we've seen, Taylor Clarke might not be the worst pitcher on the slate, but Eichhoff probably has the most brand recognition, and he's cheap anyway. People might roll with him there, especially being a little bit priced up. Well, and Alcantara is priced up too over on DraftKings. That might be where people slide. If you get some kind of ownership projection from, Roto Grinders or Labs or even Line Star app, something like that, you can find some kind of a consensus chalk pick. And if it is decent, if it's 30, 40, 50%, and it's on Eichhoff, you're going to just stack St. Louis today. Because with all of the chalk going to one direction, it opens up leverage for the other side of it. And on big slates, that doesn't usually matter. On small slates, we saw Houston the other night go nuts. Houston was arguably not in a good spot compared to the slate. It was a 6-game or 7-game slate. Houston was not in a great spot. However, they went bonkers. And those people that went away from, I think they were talking, I don't remember who the pitcher was facing them, but it was a decent pitcher that people were saying, okay, that probably caps Houston's upside. Well, it didn't. Guess what? When you had options like on a slate that size, you could get away from Houston and not choose them and then wonder, darn, I should have probably taken them. But on a slate this small, people are more and more afraid to go away from that chalk if it's some kind of overwhelming chalk. I don't think Eichhoff's overwhelming chalk, but I'm going to be watching for this, and I'm going to definitely take advantage of it with a St. Louis stack if I can get a read on Eichhoff being a little too popular for his abilities today, because it could happen. That said, let's dive into batting matchups. Let's look for some 200 on 200 candidates who might have some power, because a lot of these ground ball pitchers probably are not giving up a ton of ISO against. We do have a little bit, though. I would sort this starting pitcher ISO by descending order, bring all the crap ISOs to the top. Beatty against lefties, right? So 272 ISO to lefties. 225 in Curtis Granderson. He should be on your list. 190 maybe in Harold Ramirez. He should be on your list. The other guys aren't given a lot of power. People ask all the time, what is my cutoff for power numbers? About 200, but it's not like I won't include a 190. That's close. I won't include the 140. I'm not going to consider JT Riddle as having a lot of power, at a 140 over a 2-year sample size, but 190 is pretty close. Harold Ramirez is doing all right. Doesn't have a lot of plate appearances, in this situation, but doing all right so far. Looking down here at the 229s, also versus lefties. Eichhoff versus lefties. There you go. We already said that. Looking for the power against lefties, and you've got Matt Carpenter at a 240. That's a big ISO. 333 down here, Lane Thomas. Small sample size in the minors. He might be riding the bench right now. But that's about it. I mean, yeah, Dexter Fowler against, a 184 is okay, but it's not, I'm going to target a Granderson. I'm going to target a Matt Carpenter. I might fill in with some of these other guys, but they're not my targets. Scrolling down to the 210, and look at the drop down to 164. So 210 is our last available shot at the 200 on 200 metric. Bryce Harper at a 276, Franco at a 196, 187, and Nick Williams maybe. If he drew a start or something like that, I might look at him. But generally, it's Harper, Granderson, and maybe Carpenter if you're going to play the 200 on 200 game. Those are your three guys this slate. I'm going to write that down. Now, I don't know how many of them are swinging the bat very well, but if you see 200 on 200, these are the legit guys that have 200 ISOs and are facing a pitcher giving up 200 or more ISO to the handedness of the batter. So that's one of those interesting things to pay attention to because it does a pretty good job at spotting home runs. I would like to see them running high in their WOBA categories. What I did today, so you're going to have to just take notes. What I did today was I ran out and went position by position, and I used, while we're waiting for some of the research station to populate, I went out and I used Fangraphs and I used OPS because I like that metric quite a bit too. So sometimes I use it, sometimes I use WOBA. About a 380 WOBA is equivalent to about a 900 OPS. We know that over 1,000 OPS is elite. So position by position, last 7 days, looking for the hot hitters. Alfaro in Miami is the only catcher over a 400 or over a 900 ops. He's got a 1378. That's way up there. He's probably cheap, probably not a bad punt play in a game that we said might be a weird shootout game in the San Francisco-Miami game. At first base, Phillies are running hot right now, so Rhys Hoskins is a 1318 ops. Goldschmidt's coming on a little bit for St. Louis at 1173. Daniel Murphy out in Colorado at a 958. And Neil Walker in Miami also at a 965. All playable. Maybe you choose the expensive Goldschmidt or Hoskins. Maybe you go down a little lower for Neil Walker for value. Maybe you're stacking the Miami side of it because you're expecting a shootout. Whatever your theory is, stick to your guns, research your ideas, and use numbers to back them up. If you can't find numbers to back them up, move on to plan B. Pretty simple. Second base, Ketel Marte, I believe, is an outfielder on Fanduel, but he's a 1361, leads the second baseman. Vargas might be a second baseman or a third baseman, and he's a 1341. And Cesar Hernandez is still 1,000 ops over the last week, so Cesar Hernandez is definitely in play. Third base, Nolan Arenado's ripping a cover off the ball, 1533. That is the highest OPS last 7 days OPS on the slate. 1533. Arenado, if you've got such cheap pitching, Arenado is going to be popular. Again, GPP theory. You can fade Arenado and just go somewhere else. Maybe you do, around him with Arenado, usually bats third, so maybe you do a 1, 2, 4, 5 type stack and specifically leave him out. Maybe you wrap it with like a 7, 8, 1, 2 or something. You've got guys on base in front of Arenado. If he has a good game, you're getting a few of those points, but if he doesn't have a good game, you've dodged that big salary, but you're going to have money at your disposal. In a cash game, you probably just lock him in. I'm talking theory for tournaments, not theory for cash. And even those hybrid type lineups that I talk about with leagues and whatever, you don't need that kind of theory to win a 100-man league. You can just chalk it up and win those 100-man leagues. So play smart, play safe, and just that your theory, that your research points in a good direction. Like yesterday, we had a lot of great spots. Arizona was in a great spot. Atlanta was in a great spot. Didn't pan out for crap. I finished like 19th out of 21 in a double up with a ton of overlay where I only had to get into like the top 13 of 19. That's what it was, top 13 of 19, and I finished 18th out of 19 because the safer, smarter plays didn't work out. What are you going to do? It happens some days. It's very frustrating, but it happens. Vargas again at third base, 1341, depending on where he qualifies. Escobar in Arizona at 907 ops. If you're going to play the day early theory of yesterday, they were in a great spot. Today, they'll produce. There it is. Escobar would be one of my keys. Kingery in Philly, if he gets the start, he qualifies in a lot of different spots. I don't know where on Fanduel he qualifies, but he's a 905 ops last 7 days. He's definitely playable wherever he's playable. He's going to be cheap. Shortstop, Nick Ahmed's an 1115 ops. Trevor Story's 1068 ops. And then Kingery at 905. If I'm not mentioning other players, they're not a 900 OPS right now over the last 7 days. Doesn't mean they suck. It just means they're not quite there. Then I look at outfield, and I look at Ketel Marte, 1361, McCutchen, 1217, Harold Ramirez, not Hanley, Harold Ramirez, 1126, LeCastro still hanging on at over 1,000 ops, 1033. Talk about day early. He was popular yesterday leading off and didn't do squat. Day early. Call it the day early bomb if you want to. Maybe LeCastro hits one out today. Adam Jones coming up the list again at 1,018. Bryce Harper, 955. David Dahl, 919 if he draws a start for whatever reason. You guys, this is basically one thing you can do is go by position by position by position and just take the better bats. Take the hotter bats. Take the power bats. Take note of your 200 on 200. Take note of your last 7 days WOBA, last 7 days OPS. Look at what teams are supposed to be going against bad pitching and target those teams specifically. Try to find the hot bats, but if you can't, you've got a decision to make. Do I think this offense is going to do something to this pitcher, or do I think the offense is just so inept right now it can't hit its way out of a wet paper bag? These are the questions that go through everybody's mind. We're all answering the same questions. We're all asking the same questions. Now, in DFS Army, we have coaching rooms where we sit and we talk about this sort of stuff back and forth, and we kind of get on the same train of thought. However, out in the real world, if you're on your own, you're on your own. You're probably frustrated. You don't know if you're doing it right. You don't know if you're doing it wrong. I'm here to tell you you're probably doing it pretty close to right. But you don't know that because you don't get any feedback. You don't have the coach's support helping you, guiding you, and reassuring you that you're not that far off. It takes a lot of self-confidence to do it alone. You can gain a lot of self-confidence by joining a group that will encourage you. That's what we do. So stop inside dfsarmy.com, use coupon code CHOP, CHOP, trigger that 20% off discount, get yourself in here, get to learning. You might make it before lock today. It's only 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, Central Daylight Time. Get on in here. We're under 20 minutes. Let's cruise on out of here with the Hyper Simple Breakdown for the May 30th, early only. Take care, guys. We'll talk to you soon.